Christianity C1 review covering Las Vegas and the world. The famed review, male review, Chippendales is at a new home in Las Vegas now at the Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino. Tuesday through Sunday at 8 p.m. with additional shows at 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. We're here today with the dance captain, dancer, and guitarist extraordinaire Ryan Kelsey of Chippendales. Ryan, it's always great to have you on C1 review. How are you, sir?
Doing good today. How are you?
Doing very well. So why don't you tell me, before we talk about your new home, about the 24th anniversary next month and what it means?
I mean, 24 is a long time. I'm sure some of your watchers are familiar with me, but if you're not, I'm born and raised here in Las Vegas. This is my home. So, in that amount of time, I've seen many, many shows come and go, and that's for a show to even get a 3, 4, 5 year run is something spectacular in this town. So to hit double digits at all, let alone nearing a quarter century here is something really special.
Oh, no denying that. So tell me, according for many years, you guys were at the Rio, then you moved to the Link last year. You now have your own theater at the Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino. Tell me what that means.
Finally being on the Strip is, something we've been asked about for 23 years. We loved our home at the Rio. We loved our theater there was obviously very beautiful. We have a long working relationship with Caesars and Caesars Entertainment. We adore being partnered with them. We enjoyed the other shows. They provided all their properties and kind of being intertwined in all their entertainment. And Caesars decided to sell the Rio, and Dreamscape was very nice to us, but we wanted to stay with Caesars. So we shopped around. We tried the Link for a little bit. We found that the Planet Hollywood in a little bit of a cozier setting where we could get to everyone and interact with everyone. And that Link theater is absolutely beautiful. Obviously, Matt Franco's in there, and he does such a wonderful job. But some of those seats were a little far away from male review. So we're happy to be in a theater where no matter what seat you're going to buy, that you get a little interaction if you want it.
So where is it located at the Planet Hollywood, just so people know?
So we are up in the mezzanine, which they lovingly call the Mezz. We are directly across from Chris Angel's theater. So if anyone, we're still kind of new, so if any hotel employee doesn't know exactly where to go, if you ask for Chris Angel, we're directly across. There's a giant escalator in the middle of the casino floor that will take you up to both theaters. Caramella, the restaurant, is also up there. We have a great working relationship with them as well. They have amazing food. They do what they call a girl dinner every Thursday, which you can actually do right before our show if you want to get some great cheap eats on the way in, and they have a speakeasy as well. So we have Caramella, we have Chris Angel, and we are right across the foyer right there upstairs.
So tell me about your role as the dance captain for this show.
So my job is to basically train and maintain the quality of what you physically see in the show. So that's training the guys in what the routines are. That is organizing the show nightly. So, if we have different cast members in or out, making sure the numbers, everyone is in a certain track or spot or role, making sure we have, someone on the bike, someone in the tub, someone in the shower, right? The group numbers, making sure that we're all evenly spaced and everyone can be seen. And, if it's supposed to go right, go right. If it's supposed to go left, all that type of stuff. So it's the training and the maintaining of the visual experience.
Obviously, Chippendales was a brand before it got to Las Vegas 23 years ago. But talk about the staying power in the Las Vegas entertainment capital of the world. And obviously, I know you're from a show business family. But what do you ascribe to all this?
Yeah, I think Chips, it moved from New York in '02, and New York's a fabulous city, but I think, it's tough to rival Vegas as far as pure entertainment goes, right? So, and I think Chips quickly became entrenched here, and I know people would drive by and see the signs or the old wall or whatever it was, and the name and just being synonymous with male review, being the first male review ever. What that's come to mean, and Las Vegas, the amount of boundaries this town has broken, and the amount of entertainment this town provides. It's just been such a natural synergy that we've been very glad that our name is associated with Vegas in the way that it is.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell me about your show business family backgrounds, your artistic backgrounds? You were learning dance at a young age.
I was. So my parents both danced here on the Strip. They both did Lido de Period, the Stardust. That's actually, they were in that show when they got married. They ran across the street after second show one night and got married at one of the little chapels, still in show makeup. So yeah, my mom had her master's in dance as well. They did some. My mom did Mulan when it was here. She danced in the Copa Room, the original Copa Room. A lot of stuff. They both did Jubilee as well. My dad continued on at the Stardust and did Enter the Night when that show turned over. Once my mom had my sister, who's also in entertainment and 5 years younger than me, she went into full time teaching at a local studio. So we grew up here. I started ballet, tap, jazz, modern, lyrical, and adagio when I was 12 years old. I'd done a little bit of gymnastics before that, and yeah, so I grew up, in the industry, around the industry. I remember, when I was, 12, 13, 14 years old, when my dad was doing Into the Night, every once in a while they would have a covered show that all ages were allowed to go to, and we would get to stay up late and go to the Stardust and watch them dance. And so it's just sort of been in my blood since the beginning. I got my first professional job up in Reno at the El Dorado. I was doing a tap dance show up there when I was 17. I've worked different cruise ships tours, a few Vegas shows, including Jubilee as well. Came back in, I traveled for a little while entertaining, and I came back in 2010. I opened Vegas to Show. I was original cast Vegas to Show and their first dance captain. I then went on to open pinup at the Stratosphere as the lone male in that show, which I'm sure you remember. And then that led into Chippendales.
Yeah, we had Claire Sinclair on when that show was going on. Absolutely. Remember that show very much. Great show, by the way. Here's what I'm going to tell you in this regard. What do you ascribe to all of that experience and all that knowledge to be able to lead a group of men and teach them new dance routines, I'd imagine?
That was a little bit of a I adapt a little bit when I got into shifts, and not necessarily when I started doing the routines, but when I started becoming, responsible for a little of the dance captain duties. I started as assistant dance captain for a year, and then stepped up. Yeah, it's. I mean, what I've learned is this is the fifth job I've been a dance captain at, and what I've learned is each job is incredibly different. And if the first couple times I walked in being like, oh, I've done this before, I got this, and I got my rear end handed to me a little bit. So yeah, every job is different, and adapting to not only the setting but the personnel, the people you have, the personality types, right? That interacting with different personalities is as much of the job as hey, kick on one and arm on two, right? And it was an adjustment because I was a musical theater kid, right? And I was used to very theatrical backstages, and not only with guys and girls, but artists are a certain type of way, and I'm one of them. But being in an all male backstage where half of those guys are either bodybuilders or hockey players and baseball players, and that's a little more of a traditional like masculine butch vibe. So teaching dance and commanding the stage and running rehearsals, it is a little bit different, but I actually love it so much. I love the guys we work with, and we're very proud that we don't hire like what I call the ultimate like hey bro, we don't really hire those guys and those personality types. So it's just a bunch of guys that actually are hungry to learn more about dance. A lot of them that didn't know anything about theater before the job. So yeah, kind of educating on some basic stuff that maybe they didn't have training with, but also some of these guys adapt and learn so fast, and watching how like a left brain male mind sort of like breaks down a situation is always fascinating to me. So it's something I'm constantly in love with at the show.
Tell me about your rigorous workout schedule and what it consists of.
I'll speak for myself on this. We get this question a lot as Chippendales, and every guy has a completely different answer. For me, it's more about consistency rather than like an insane amount of working out. Unless you're going for like Mr. Olympia or a bodybuilding competition. Like if you're in the gym longer for an hour or an hour and a half, you're wasting time. You're taking too long between sets, or you're not being efficient. But the daily routine, right? I'll do 20 to 30 minutes of cardio. I love the Stairmaster. That's what gets me sweating the most. But incline treadmill is great too, or just running on a track. But I'll do 20 to 30 minutes of cardio 3 to 4 days a week, and I'll try to lift 5, and whatever mix match of those combinations end up happening. But I try to get 1 day off a week as well.
And I believe, we talked about this, I think it was back in 2020. You write down everything you eat, correct? Do you still do that?
I loosely note it. I've, it's such a habit now. I don't have to, directly notate it. I think that's a great idea for people that are new to nutrition or new to watching their diet, because a lot of the times, the subtle snacks sort of in between, we don't register. We think, what I eat today? Like, oh, I had this salad, oh, I had this, meal. I had this chicken, I had this steak, whatever. You think about the big meals and you forgot, like, oh, I grabbed this scoop full of this and I grabbed a little candy on the way to work. Those little snacks don't tend to register as much. So I think, really notating without judgment, but like just notating what you do eat on, for a couple weeks will kind of pinpoint where some of the problem areas might be. And most people don't need a hardcore nutritionist. Most people, once they kind of see, like, oh, like, yeah, that bag of Skittles, like that, I could cut that, and I wrote it down. Now I'm responsible for it. You'd be surprised how easy it is once everything's in front of you.
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to say to you. I mean, we've talked about this for years on C1 Review, that the men of Chippendales and the women of all the different female reviews, you guys are artletes. You're artistic backgrounds, but you're absolutely have athletic backgrounds as well. So talk about it. People see you up there and you guys make it look so easy, but there's, hours and hours and hours of practice and preparation, all those kinds of things. So tell me about the injuries, what you've dealt with, what the reality of this really is.
I mean, injuries are unavoidable in any sort of physical work. Whether it's athletics or dance or gymnastics or circus, whatever it is. I will say, I'm one of the older guys at work, and I've had the luxury of working under, throughout my life, different choreographers that were older than, let's say, they move much better for people than that are their same age, right? And I've had a bunch of these choreographers through my history sort of teach me, hey, when you're dancing, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can preserve your knees, and if you do X, Y, Z, you can preserve your back. So I try to pass on the knowledge to the guys, and I try to never, if we're setting choreography and I'm seeing guys with knees are starting to tweak or back starting to cramp or whatever, I'll make adjustments there, because I believe in longevity, and the best ability is availability, right? So we try to make the show, obviously full of dance and great dancing and artistry and everything, but what we do in the show, there is a conscious effort behind it to make it not be injury inducing. So our injuries have been minimal at the show. But we jump off chairs. We've had ankles go on landings, or we're in the crowd. There's sometimes spilled drinks that you can slip, and even if you're not on the ground, like slipping and just tensing up sometimes can strain a little something or whatever. So we've had minor nicks and cuts and scrapes here and there, but I'd like to report that, knock on wood, we've been pretty healthy overall.
Aside from being the dance captain, you're unbelievable. You play the guitar on the show. You have a great talent for guitar. When did you learn the guitar? When did that become a thing? You're so talented at that.
Thank you. So growing up, obviously, I shared I had a whole dancer family, and during my teenage years, everyone has a little bit of rebellion in them, right? I that was music was the rebellion. So whenever it was dance, 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 and my mom was, my mom taught all day, every day. So we used the studio even when I wasn't in class. I would be there as like a babysitting service, right? So we were at the studio all the time, and I loved it. There's kids all around. It was a great place to grow up. But whenever I just wanted something like, no, I want my own thing and not my family thing, whenever I was rebelling that way, that became music. Yeah, I tried a few different things, but music is what it settled on. So, I kind of said like whichever. One took off first, I'd go with, and my dance career took off when I was 17, so it's hard to argue with that. I always just kind of kept it in my back pocket, and then I started playing. The first time I played in public was, if you remember the show Alice, I did with Ann Martinez. She was like, "Hey, you've got the skill. Let's try to put it in the show." And of course, I was terrified to play in front of people, but that was, I think, 2013 or 14. It was the first time I actually played in front of someone, and a couple years later, ended up at on stage in Chips. I think it was 2015 or 16, and then after that, it's been all full steam ahead.
So basically, it's almost been 10 years you've been with Chippendales.
It's been 12.
Oh, 12 years. Okay. And you're going to do this as long as you can, I guess, no?
Let me show you my fresh Chippendales tattoo here. Look at that.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to guess that you're just going to do this as long as you can. Is that the plan?
That's the goal. If there's any sports fans out there, I'm gonna Brett Favre this thing where I'm gonna make them pull me off stage and not vice versa. Yeah, listen, I'm towards the end of my career. I've had an amazing 20 plus year career on stage in different shows, and not many people get to do it. for even a few years, right, in a professional setting, let alone the run I've had. So I'm living in the bonus right now, and I'm living on not borrowed time, but I definitely I'm playing with house money. There we go. There's a Vegas analogy. So I'm going to keep myself fit, and I'm going to be there to the best of my ability. And when it's time for me to go, hopefully, I'd love to be on the management team and continue to help the show run, and still be on the creative team. There's a lot of elements of the show I still feel I can do, even if I'm not on the stage. This place has been an amazing home for me for 12 years, and I'd like to create an environment where it can be that for some of the other guys as well.
I imagine you can continue to be the dance teacher of that show. Why not?
Yeah, I'd like to. Obviously that's a team effort. I have a few other guys that do know a lot of the choreography, and just this last week we were in a show in Orlando, and we simultaneously were running stuff in Vegas. So we had Jason, our host, go out there, and he knows almost the entire show, and he was able to set that up, and we got a few other guys, because I don't want to be scared to take a day off, or have a date night with my wife, or take a little trip, right? So on those times where I'm unavailable, we got guys that can fill it too. And I imagine that will be the same going forward. And I'd like to be one of those guys for sure.
What do you think the biggest misconception about the show is for people who haven't gone to it, but of course have seen the clips, seen the media, been exposed to tidbits over the...
I'd say that we are a strip club. That would be the biggest misnomer. And like strip clubs are great. I'm very like pro sex worker, your life, your body, do what you want. But we are definitively not a strip club. We are a show. We are a Las Vegas production show with, a show running order and transitions and an LED wall, and curtain pulls and set pieces. And, this is, a full live Las Vegas production show. And I think that's the thing I when we talk to people at our meet and greet after the show, I hear the most feedback that we don't know what to expect. And, they're expecting a little bit of a cheesy male stripper vibe, and they didn't realize what a production they're going to get.
And then do you think is the biggest misconception about the people who come and see Chippendales are?
Ooh, that's 12 years. That's the first time I've gotten that question. That's a good one. Listen. Sometimes our show people hear the stories of the wildest people that come and see our show. The extreme ends of maybe our audience members. But I'd say, if you hear a crazy story about an audience member doing something outlandish, 95% of people come to our show, watch, cheer, get a lap dance if they want, and just have a great time as like a responsible adult.
I think that's a fair statement. Finally, as you were speaking about it earlier, how do you think professional sports has changed Las Vegas over the last decade?
I mean, immensely. When I was a kid here, the notion of getting a sports team was impossible. Like, that's where gambling and sin are, and it will ruin sports. If anything comes to Las Vegas, right, was always what I heard, as a teenager, being like, oh, I want a football team. And I think, there was several small waves that changed. I think the XFL trying a team and that being, successful with the Outlaws here. And I think us having, I think we had the indoor football for a couple of years. We had the Wranglers hockey. I grew up with Thunder hockey. I remember going to Thunder games at UNLV, Thomas and Mack. So it's always been budding, but to get the pro leagues here, I mean, it's just become the focus of this town. There's an argument that it's almost negatively affected. Maybe not some of the big shows. I don't think it's affected like the Sphere or Celine Dion or J-Lo or whoever's playing the Coliseum, right? I think the more things there are to do in Vegas, the more people have to decide what to do. And I think some of the intermediate shows have maybe had some attention pulled from them. So it makes me a little sad for the entertainment industry. With that said, I grew up here, and I love UNLV, and watching them get to play in a professional arena. It's completely changed that team. It's changed what that school has changed, what recruiting is, and the central school of any city being good and having revenue coming in and things like that is only positive for the city. So to have something communal, that for the locals like the Knights and to an extent the Raiders, but I especially point at the Knights to have like something to do together. This town was, everyone's working different shifts, and that was the first thing, especially after the shooting, that was the first thing we got to do together, right? So there's a magic in that. But yeah, it's very different. It's we are like, even the Vegas marketing being like the greatest arena on earth. It's like, oh, this is a different town than when I was young. So I think there's pros and cons to it. As a sports fan, I love it. Entertainment fan, I miss some of the classic Vegas shows and classic showgirl shows, but there's still so much great entertainment here, and life is evolution. So I'm interested to see where the city goes next, because it's always a ride.
Well said, Ryan Kelsey. Chippendales, of course, again, Tuesday through Sunday at 8 p.m. at the Planet Holly Resort and Casino there you go, on Fridays. And then there are, of course, additional shows Friday and Saturday at 10 p.m. as well. So you do 2 shows on Friday and Saturday. Ryan, thanks so much for joining. Finally, tell people again, how can they find Chippendales? Social media, website, what's the best way?
We keep it super easy. Chippendales.com or at Chippendales on all socials. I'd say Instagram is, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, but Instagram is a great one to follow if you want to, see what's going on. We keep it updated constantly, obviously new and fresh content, but tour dates and everything that's going on with the show. So, but Chippendales.com too, if you want a traditional website, we have all the tour dates on there, and you can buy tickets either through there or Ticketmaster.
Ryan, thanks so much for being on C1 Interview. It's always good seeing you, man.
Always good seeing you.